I'm about to chat to Wilfred Emmanuel-Jones, who's the founder of The Black Farmer. And I will just say right now, I am a huge fan. Not only was he one of the first guests on Conversations of Inspiration, but then he joined us at Congregation of Inspiration 2019 and basically blew the church's roof off. I have his book. I would have his t-shirt. I would go to his rock concert if he had one. He is an amazing gentleman, and I haven't spoken to him during lockdown, but I can only imagine what the Wilfred mind has been getting up to, and I know that this is going to be thoroughly enjoyable.
Hi everybody, this is just quickly to say that I'm going to be appearing with Holly Tucker a bit later on, so hopefully you'll be able to tune in. See you then.
Hi Wilfred.
I must say this is my first ever, live...
Instagram Live.
Instagram Live. I tell you what though, this is the future. This is the future. God knows what all these broadcasters are going to do when they could see that you could actually have your own live broadcast. It's absolutely phenomenal. I'm loving it.
Oh, Wilfred, well, I'm so happy that your first is with me. This is amazing.
You first with you actually, Holly. I mean, since I met you, my world has really sort of exploded. So thank you.
Well, you are absolutely one of my, I don't know. I was just saying, I don't know if you saw, I was telling everyone about your book, which I'm
so pleased if you sort of keep plugging it. And I think the last time we spoke, I'd just written it, and you would never think that actually the timing is now for a book like that. It's you know, the gods must have been looking down on me and said, listen, boy, you better read this book, because a lot of people are going to be faced with a lot of the issues that I talk about in the book.
It's incredible. And tell me, how have you, before we get into business and how things are going there, tell me how you have been faring over the last 10 weeks.
Okay, well, I'm one of those in the shielded group, because I think when we spoke a while ago, I explained to you that I had leukemia, and because I then had acute myeloid leukemia, I then had to have a stem cell transplant, which happened some 6 years ago. And one of the consequences of having that stem cell transplant, you can see my skin, that's something graft versus host disease as a consequence of it. But also it means that I have a compromised immune system. So I have been very, very cautious, because you could imagine that if you've actually nearly died 5 years ago, you want to try your best to make sure you don't put yourself in harm's way. So it's been very good in terms of, I've been very prepared for it.
And how has that been for you in terms of your mental health? And just, have you been able to deal, I've seen a lot of your cooking. You've been cooking furiously, haven't you?
Yes, I've just taken my glasses off, because I just think I look like Stevie Wonder there. I have a chance to have a look into my eyes. But I'm absolutely loving lockdown. And
are you?
It's very bizarre thing to say, but I'm loving it, because in a sense, what we all need in our lives is a chance to pause, to reflect, to then determine whether what are we doing with our lives? Is it the sort of things we want? And I don't think people have ever had a moment like this in this generation where they have a chance to really pause and say, what do I want out of my life? And I don't know whether this opportunity will come around again. And I would say to everybody, grab this moment to decide what you want to do with your life. Because when we talk about, in my book, I talk about the biggest problem that most people have in life is that they're addicted to certainty. Now, if you're addicted to certainty, what's happened in the last 12 weeks has just wiped the floor with everything that you may have predicted your future would hold. And what I advocate in a big way, and those for us who run our own businesses, those for us who are freelancers, all know, in order to actually get the best out of things, is to make a friend of uncertainty. Because if you make a friend of it, will then open up things that are just beyond your wildest imaginings. And so it's a really exciting time. When there's uncertainty, it's exciting. And one of the phrases I absolutely love, it's a bit like falling in love. You know, when you're falling in love, that where it's so uncertain, you don't know what's going to happen, you know, whether they like you, and there is something that just propels you to keep going forward. It is like the situation we find in now. We do not know. But rather than it being a depressive state, is to say it's to be excited by it, because so many opportunities are waiting for us there in the future. But I love change, and change is where great excitement, great opportunities lay. And when I think back to when I started my business, the Black Farmer brand, it was at the time of another big major change. You know, here we are now talking on Instagram. Instagram didn't exist. Facebook had just started. Social media as we knew it it did not exist. And I can remember when we launched our sausages, the thing that I was proudest of was that we were the first brand ever to put the social media strap on the packaging. It was like not done. It was so revolutionary to say, look, find us on Facebook and all of these sort of stuff. So what I think is now exciting about this changes is that the way of life, the way we operate, the way we deal with people has changed. Well, it would have happened over time, but this coronavirus has basically speeded that all up. The thing about work and what's personal are so connected, which I think is good, because those of us who, you know, run our own business, we're doing what we love, and there is no divide between work and personal. It's all part of the same thing. And for people who have never seen themselves as entrepreneurs, they are now having a glimpse into our world, where it isn't 9 to 5. It is, you know, you do it when you feel like doing it. And I would imagine there's a lot of people out there who are doing things not because they love it, it's because they feel they need to pay the mortgage. How am I going to survive? If that is at the top of your mind, you'll never be free. You're a prisoner. You're a prisoner of fear. And I talk about fear in my book as well, is that the one thing that stops people from actually doing what they want to do is fear. And if they could actually get rid of that fear, it will then open up the world, because that is what freelancers have to do. That is what entrepreneurs have to do. They're in control of fear rather than fear being in control of them.
I mean, you're like a walking sort of Instagram, Pinterest quotes person. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's just like, honestly, I'm like, right, I'm sure the team captured that one. Yeah. Wilfred, tell me, going into business, so this time, how has it affected you, and how have you navigated this time in terms of business? Well, for me,
I'm lucky because I'm on the right end of the food business. So we're But what I say is this, is that the moment in life you sort of start, you put your foot up and you think, all right, you know, everything is working all right for me. That is the most vulnerable moment of your life. Because if I look at my sales now, they are doing phenomenally well. But this is my prediction. My prediction is that supermarkets, as we know them, will not exist in 10 years' time. It is a height of, if you think about it now, that going shopping was always a chore. It's now even more of a chore, that you've got to go and bloody queue up. You know, there's a system you go around. So there's no, there's no real pleasure in it. But if most people now are going to be working from home, everything that you advocated back in your day, Holly, about the high street, localization, I believe, is going to become a big thing. Because if you were working from home, you'd be going for coffees with your local community that's local. You'd be frequenting what is local. That actually, when you want things delivered, you're going to be available to have things delivered. So it's a really big opportunity for anybody who is starting at a business and they want to do a direct-to-consumer business. The climate is now right for that. It's going to be about the relationship that people have with the people who produce their food, which is a really, really good thing.
But Wilfred, so just going back, because I'm fascinated what you were saying, because you're an entrepreneur and an angel and you help people. Because I can almost see another way that we're going to consume is, for instance, I'm going to love a cheese brand. And actually now this idea that business, and I was speaking to Pippa from Pippa Nut, and her direct to customer business has gone up by over 1,000%. Because now, in a way, we can now engage with that brand, we can like the person behind it, and we can get it direct to our door. Do you think we'll start breaking down that shopping now into the relationship with that small business? And thus, is this going to be a good time for small businesses?
I absolutely believe that if you are serious about business, that you will never in your life have an opportunity like this moment, because things have fundamentally changed in a major way. And the problem with direct to consumer in the past was that the consumer habits, the expense of it, it is now getting more and more efficient. Now, there are still things that need to be worked out in terms of that minimum spend. So
yes,
once that could be sorted out, because people do not want to feel as though they're going to spend 40 quid on the same product. So what I think that, what I would like to see, and I think this is another big opportunity, is for there to be an online supermarket, as it were, that only does small brands. Now, Ocado started off that way.
Yes, they did.
But in order to attract more of the mainstream, they then started to create their own label, and they went down the big route. So what they have done, in a sense, is that they've left a gap. And I believe that is something that will be coming along down the road. And if before that happens, what you've got to try and do as an entrepreneur is that how can you get that product to the consumer? And it may be that you need to join up with other entrepreneurs for it to become an efficient shop for the consumer. It is the biggest problem at the moment. But one of the things I'm looking at doing, for example, is a Black Farmer meat box. And within there'll be a selection, you see. So they could have burgers, they could have sausages, they could have chicken. So for the consumer, spending 40 or 50 quid, it makes sense because they have variety.
I've also been talking to this community just about that what you're talking about, but also you could do that physically. So if we become more local, as you said, we're working from home, how can we take, landlords who are going to be desperate for people to rent their shops, come together as 2, 3, 4 of you come together? It's all about, isn't it? It's the economies of scale that can be really harnessed. But even if you're 4 separate companies coming together, and actually you're stronger together than you are alone. Now, I've got another question for you from the Thoughtful Potter. How did you find the strength to overcome the challenges of childhood to build such a successful business?
One of the things I talk about, and I talk about it in the book as well, is that the most important thing about bringing about change is having the courage to dream. Now, it may seem like a very simple thing, and it's a very Americanized way of being. The British are very cynical when you start thinking those things, that you could dream beyond your own circumstances, that you could dream to reach for the stars. The idea is everybody needs to, push it down, keep everything down as a level. Now, you have to have the courage to say, right, this is what I want, and then to recognize, and I've said it in my podcast, but it's so important that I think it's really important that I say it again here, is that anybody can achieve anything that they want in life. Anybody can achieve anything, because all they need is 2 things, and they're 2 very simple things, but they are vitally important. And the first thing is that they have to have ruthless focus. And that doesn't mean you have to be a horrible, nasty person. What it means is that you get rid of the white noise of living. One of the things that the coronavirus has taught us is that most of our lives was filled with the white noise of living on an everyday life. What we've been able to do is to focus down on what's important. And every successful person, whether they're an athlete, whether they're a businessman, whether they're an entrepreneur, they have the ability to focus on what's important and not get caught up with all the white noise and what is it, irrelevance is. And then the second thing, and that is more important than the first thing, is that you need to have passion. And people think, oh God, you got to be a very strange character in your life. But what I say to people is this: passion defies reason, it defies logic, it doesn't need evidence, you don't need any data in terms of making the decisions. You trust your gut, you trust your instinct. And this is between the sort of left brain and the right brain thinking. And now right brain thinkers are creative people, where they're actually they also trust the way they feel. They are quite sensitive to people. And part of passion, part of your instinct is that reason and logic cannot make sense of it. And we fall in love when we do some of the biggest decisions we make in our lives, even buying a house. It isn't down to what's rational. There's something that makes you feel, I belong here. And I believe that if you're going to do something new and different, trust the gut. And the biggest mistake that most people make is that they'll read a book, they'll see how somebody's doing something and think, okay, that's what we should do. And I say, that is wrong. The most important thing in life is to find out what is your personal story, because your personal story is what is unique. And if the more people could actually tap into themselves and the unique themselves and then sell that, the more they wouldn't get clouded in when, you know, the way that a corporate would do it or the way bigger companies would do it. The biggest mistakes that most people make when they're starting off their business, they think, well, I worked in corporate life. That's how they do it there. That's how I should do it. Wrong, 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 wrong. It doesn't work like that. And I've been in business long to be able to tell people that over and over again. And I'm amazed how many people continuously make that mistake.
Yeah. Well, it's just, again, golden what you're saying, but it's that thing, isn't it? And I say to the small business community, don't keep looking at big businesses as if they know what they're doing. You know, it really is quite unbelievable what we're going to see. You're probably also, Wilfred, do you agree, going to see those dinosaurs on the high street just die off?
Oh, thank God, thank God. And I mean, as a small player, the greatest frustration that I've always had, it's all about the volume business. Well, what's your volume? You're not doing X billion, they don't even want to touch it. So I believe, it's what I said earlier on, that localization has to be the watchword of the future. When you go to a high street in Birmingham or Bristol or Launceston, there is a difference there, not these bloody big multinationals. That actually it's about going into the same thing, because again, why would you need them? You want to be able to feel as though when you're going in, and one of the things about the online community is that you can discover this world of new things. The high street doesn't represent that. That's why they've struggled. There's no theatre. It's the same.
There's no ability to be curious on the high street.
Exactly.
You can't be curious. You can't be a shopper who wants to discover. There's no Bill from Bill's, you know, the restaurants. You know, he talks about theatre in your restaurants and that, all of that. And we've all become battery hens, haven't we?
Something actually, Holly. This is sorry, because I was having a conversation yesterday. Because one of the things I think I said in my old podcast is that I would like to have a black farmer farm shop somewhere down in Devon, locally. Now, I seen a property on the river where there was a restaurant and it went bust. And I thought, oh, this might be a really ideal location for a black farmer farm shop come eatery. I rang up the landlord to say, you know, I'm interested. And this is what the landlord said to me. And I just thought, these people haven't got round to the world has changed. But look, somebody a bit more, you know, established, been around for a long time. And I said, boy, you're going to get a kicking because, you know, the idea that is going to be the future, because that's what used to happen, you see, is that these property developers that get what they call sort of key names, attract them, and then think everything is going to be rosy. That world ain't going to be like that. So I thought, well, you know, they're still hoping that, you know, one of the big brands is suddenly going to come along and take up that space.
They've got a rude awakening, haven't they, coming their way? But I wanted to ask you, for anyone who hasn't listened to our Conversations of Inspiration, they have to go and check it out, because also Wilfred talks about the incredible journey, born in Jamaica, then you moved to Birmingham, followed your passion, became the first black farmer, well, certainly anywhere that you lived had ever seen, and which was just basically not an easy journey. And I wanted to touch on, if I may, the sort of political nightmare that's going on in America, and now spreading throughout the world in this already traumatic time. You know, just to add to that, one of my actions in terms of what I'm going to do, and I've already started, it's amplifying more Black-owned small businesses, which I don't think is done enough. And I was wondering if you had any recommendations or any just thoughts that you could share.
Okay. Well, there's two things I want to share. The first thing I'm about to say is going to be really controversial, so I want people to really hear me out before they sort of jump down my throat. The best thing that has happened to America is Donald Trump. Let me say that again. The best thing that's ever happened to America is Donald Trump. Because sometimes in life, you have to hit rock bottom before you decide to change. And that the American people have no excuse. It's like, what more madness would they need to have seen and witnessed before they actually realize this was a real big fuck up? And I think that as a country, America has got that opportunity. So come November, you know, if they don't do what any sane person would realize is the right thing to do, what could you say? That the country's not ready for a change. So that's the thing I think about what's happened to them politically. And then in terms of the whole, what I call, it's the Black awareness. As a Black guy, I mean, I'm really excited by that. And it's about how can we then make this awareness become more, make this awareness into something practical, something tangible. Because, you know, I think that there are still elements of society where people do not get opportunity because of the color of their skin. I am probably one of the most lucky Black guys to have actually made it. And I've only made it because I didn't need anyone's permission to get to it. I had to do it all on my own. And what I would like is people of color to be able to achieve things and their color not being a disadvantage. And one of the things is a real passion of mine is that October is Black History Month. And in all the schools, they'll be teaching Black history. But everywhere else in society, you wouldn't even know that it exists. You know, I'm, for example, doing something as simple as trying to get the supermarkets on board I want to do a range of products celebrating Black heroes in the UK. If you've seen my ad, for example, one of the things is
the best ad ever.
And that's a Black guy celebrating his Englishness.
Yes.
And I think that the more mainstream society could see that actually I'm proud to be British and I celebrate my sort of Britishness, what we need to do is that we need the mainstream, the big corporates, the ones with the power and control, to be doing more to help people of color get up the ladder. And it's you see what tends to happen, big companies will have what they call their human resources department, you know, their box ticket department. Yes. Adhere to all these goddamn rules, but somebody who is high up demonstrating that they are doing something personal will do far more in sending a message throughout that business than actually sending everything to human resources. So I say it always comes down to what you personally do. You go into these big companies right in the center of London, where it's a big multicultural community, and it's like walking into a white haven. Now, the people who work in those environments must know that it feels odd. Now, if you're working in those environments, you don't see any people of color. Are you, as an individual, saying to management, "How is this so?" You know, just a number of people saying that will get the company to realize that actually they need to take this thing seriously. And just on that subject, because finally on that, is that everybody's aware of diversity and everybody tries to do their bit, but to a certain extent, the women has been hijacked. It's a lot easier to deal with the issue there's not enough women.
Yes.
Or the people of color have been low down on the list, really. So what I think companies mustn't do is to say, well, and what they'll do when you start talking about diversity, they'll say, well, we've done this in terms of women, we've done this, which is fine, which is good. Yeah. But also they need to do the same thing for people of color.
One doesn't cancel out the other,
Exactly.
which is what I think a lot of people are sort of saying, that, you know, it's not an excuse. That's not what you can then say to being questioned about it. You can't talk about women.
I'm hoping that this new awareness will continue for a long time and it really brings about change.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree more. Like, this is the time, isn't it? And almost, again, coming out of COVID, you know, imagine if this is what comes out of this pandemic. You know, who, again, 12 weeks ago, Wilfred, can you imagine all of these changes?
You know, I think if people have been locked up for 12 weeks, it is that time to reflect, to pause. You look at how we're now viewing the world, about how we now view carers, nurses.
Yes.
Problem in society. So I think what this represents is that people are now recalibrating the people they look up to. Before COVID, it was a big, you know, entrepreneurs like, you know, Branson,
yes,
and Green, all those, you know, it's their way of doing business was seen to be the way to do things. I've never really agreed with that. It's a bit like programs like The Apprentice and Dragon's Den, which is all about being hard and aggressive. That is no longer going to be acceptable in the future. It's all about collaboration. It's all about actually helping each other. And I think that there'd be a whole movement in terms of who we would regard as being important. One of the things I've been advocating for years, and when I say this to doctors, it really does put their backs up. I believe there'll become a time when nurses will be more important than doctors. Because all doctors are a mind of information. A computer can give that information, but to love, to care, to be attentive, are vital ingredients of actually surviving, has been underestimated. These carers who are washing those elements, and I know because I've been in the hospital for a year, and you see these people who care, who really, really care, and they connect with their humanity. Mm-hmm. And those people were the worst paid in our society, looked down upon. That is the big change that we're now seeing, that these people who were disregarded, whether they're the dustman, there's a sweeping the floor, the porter, the people who are fundamentally connecting with people on a human level, we're now actually had a 365-degree turn and saying, these are the people we should be celebrating, not these sort of high execs who basically have not been contributing anything to society. All their role in society is in the interest of their shareholders. That's what their great grandeur. But I believe that there is from that there may come a new politics, a new philosophy.
Yes.
But the old way of how business should be done will not exist. Just think about it now. What's going to be looked at? The idea that you'd have to go and buy a suit, dress up in a suit, so you could go into an office, so you could put across an impression of being X, Y sort of person. That is now, in a few years, people are going to think, did they used to do that sort of nonsense? That's what they're going to say. Did they used to go do that? You know, it would be seen crazy. Crazy. That people do that sort of nonsense. And they got on trains for 2 hours. They got on a train for 2 hours. Then what? To then do it the next day, and the next day, and the next day. And I am going to say goodbye to you now. Everyone but everyone adores you. Best live I've had. The best person I've ever interviewed. Everyone listen to his podcast. Everyone buy his book. Okay. Sending you all my love, Wilfred. Lots of love. Thank you. My God, how am I going to sum him up in 4 minutes? The new normal is way beyond our wildest imagination. Let's be excited by it. So many opportunities are open to us. Love change. Change is where opportunity lies. We talked all about localization. It's all going to be about local. It's going to be about connecting with those small businesses. Any business person getting people coming back to the offices are behind the times. You have to have ruthless focus and get rid of the white noise of living. Hallelujah to that. White noise. That's what we've all got, right? White noise where we can't concentrate on our businesses or the things that propel us as humans. Focus down on what's important. Everyone that is successful focuses in on the focus. You need to have passion. Passion defies reason. You have to trust your gut and trust your instinct. There's never been a better time for small businesses. And now Wilfred, our guru, he said it too, that Black awareness has
how can we make this awareness into something practical and tangible? Because there are still some areas of society that people still don't get the opportunities. What we need to do, all businesses need to help people of colour get up the ladder. It comes down to what we can personally do. We are recalibrating who we're looking up to. NHS workers, those who are propping up our society, are our new heroes. He's an amazing person, but you know, at the end of the day, this is an entrepreneur. What you just saw there, what you see in Wilfred, is true entrepreneurship. Do listen to his podcast. I know I've said that so many times, but it literally changed my life. I quote that guy every single week. I read this book. And he's a wonderful, wonderful gentleman. Thank you, NatWest 3, Dell and Royal Mail, because I'm on fire right now. I feel like I've just been supercharged by the Wilfred battery. For now, everyone, lots of love and thank you as ever.